Welcome to the deep dive.
We saw Deloitte, one of the biggest consulting firms globally, forced to refund nearly $500,000 to a government client because the report their AI generated was, and this is a direct quote, riddled with fabricated citations, fake references.
Wow. A nearly $500,000 failure side by side with headlines promising 100x speed. I mean, that contrast, that cognitive dissonance, that's really the whole story this week, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And that gap is precisely what Scholar-practitioner Erickson Katz studies. He calls it the expertise inversion.
Okay, expertise inversion.
Yeah. And our mission today is really to dig into why expert opinion, the people actually building and testing these systems, why it diverges so sharply from that really enthusiastic media story.
And critically, why ignoring that expert view costs real money.
Real money, real time, and a massive hit to trust. We need to understand why prioritizing headlines over technical consensus leads to these kinds of fits. So GDPval is a pretty specialized benchmark. It's designed to test AI on complex, multi-step tasks. Think reasoning, synthesizing information, pulling data from different places, kind of like what a junior consultant might do.
Okay.
And that 87.7% score, it is a huge technical achievement. No question. It means the system got those reasoning tasks right almost 9 times out of 10 in the lab, often matching or even beating a human expert's raw performance under those specific test conditions.
9 out of 10 sounds like a guarantee, almost. But then you look at the reaction from the actual experts, the researchers, engineers, the people analyzing this day in, day out, and the feeling just flips, doesn't it?
Completely flips. The statistical contrast Katz found is just stunning. He looked at 16 public professional reactions to that score, and while tech media was celebrating, the collective professional vibe, it was anything but.
Okay.
When you average the sentiment from researchers and professionals about this progress, it actually landed below neutral, just 2.84 out of 5.
Wait, hang on. How does a verified 87.7% score in a lab translate to a skeptical, below neutral 2.84 out of 5 from the experts? That feels like a huge disconnect.
That is the expertise inversion right there. It's all about context, or maybe a crisis of context. If you break down trust by stakeholder group, you see this perfect alignment between skepticism and technical depth. We use a simple scale. 5 is high trust.
Okay.
So the group with the lowest technical depth, general tech media, they scored trust at 4 or 5 out of 5. Super enthusiastic. They see 87.7% and just report it. Gospel truth.
Right. They see the number, report the number, but as soon as you get closer to the actual tech,
the enthusiasm just drops off a cliff. Business media, maybe, executives, IT managers, moderate technical depth, they're right in the middle. Neutral, 3 out of 5. Cautious.
okay, still cautious.
But then you hit the real technical folks. Engineers, high technical depth. The ones who'd have to deploy this stuff, they were highly skeptical, only 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5. And the people who know the absolute most, the ones who actually understand the underlying algorithms, maybe even design the tests.
The academic researchers, highest technical depth. They were actively critical, just 1 out of 5. That's basically the strongest rejection you can measure in this kind of analysis.
So this is the key takeaway then, isn't it? The deeper the expertise you survey, the sharper the skepticism about whether this thing is actually ready for prime time, for production.
Exactly. They aren't denying the raw capability that 87.7% is real technical progress. What they're questioning is the governance, the resilience, the safety of the system out in the messy, high-stakes real world.
They're asking what the benchmark doesn't measure.
Precisely. Which leads us straight to those big media claims.
All right, let's tackle the efficiency one first. 100x, faster and cheaper. That was the big, juicy headline. I mean, if that's true, that changes everything for an organization.
It's brilliant marketing copy, absolutely. But what the media tends to gloss over and what experts absolutely insist on is the cost of the necessary governance layer, the oversight.
The hidden costs.
Exactly. When you factor that in, only 40% of experts accepted that original 100x claim, the mandatory human oversight, verification, correction that all cost time and money.
What's the real speed up?
Well, the measured progress, according to these sources, is still very impressive, about 1.5 to 3 times faster or cheaper. But that's with human oversight baked into the process.
Okay, 1.5 to 3x is still significant. That's a real gain.
It absolutely is. A 3x improvement can be revolutionary in some fields, but it requires new roles, new quality checks, new processes. It's just nowhere near that hyped up 100x figure that triggers panicked, maybe uninformed buying decisions.
Yeah, that gap between 100x and 3x. That's where budgets get broken.
And this is where that 87.7% score can be fatally misleading if taken out of context. Only 25% of experts agree these systems are ready for general production deployment. A quarter. And we know even OpenAI itself frames O3 as being for complementary use only. They aren't saying let it run wild.
But why such low acceptance? I mean, if it gets almost 9 out of 10 complex tasks right, surely you can deploy it and just, have someone review the 12.3% it gets wrong. Isn't that manageable?
That's the crucial misunderstanding. Yes, it has a 12.3% failure rate overall in the benchmark. And in many situations, maybe that 12.3% can be managed with known checks and human review.
Okay.
But the experts are laser focused on what they call the irreducible risk band. This is a smaller percentage of failures, estimated around 3%, that happens in really novel, high-stakes situations.
The edge cases.
Kind of, but worse. It's where the system is prone to confident hallucinations, making things up convincingly, or errors that are really hard to spot. This risk lives outside the scope of your standard checks and balances.
So you're saying it's not the 12.3% overall error rate that's the showstopper, it's this specific, harder to catch 3%.
Precisely. Think about it like designing a new airplane part. Maybe you design it knowing it might have issues 12% of the time, and you build in redundancies for that. That's manageable risk.
Right.
But that irreducible 3%, that's the chance of a catastrophic, totally unexpected failure mode, the kind your engineers never predicted, the black swan event.
I see.
And that 3% failure rate, where systems confidently fabricate facts or make critical errors, that's deemed completely unacceptable for production-level work like legal filings, financial audits, government reports. Anything truly critical.
Okay, that explains the 1 out of 5 score from academics.
Yeah.
They get that this 3% risk is the real problem, and it's not easily fixable right now.
It absolutely does. Benchmarks test capability, sure, but they don't test governance or resilience when the stakes are sky high.
And this whole tension leads us right to what you called the Deloitte pattern, the cycle that happens when companies chase the headlines instead of listening to the experts. It sounds like a predictable path to failure.
It really is, almost like a 3-act play. Act 1 is the siren song. Tech company releases a fantastic benchmark, 87.7%. Media shouts from the rooftops, 100x faster. Executives feel immense pressure. We gotta have this now.
FOMO kicks in hard, fear of missing out.
Exactly. Act 2. Deployment without governance. Driven by that FOMO, organizations rush it out. They skip the human oversight to save costs or move faster, ignore the internal warnings that expert trust is actually low, like that 2.84 out of 5 score.
They override the caution.
They do. And then, Act 3, trust collapses. Inevitably, the system hits that 3% irreducible risk zone. The AI makes a novel, sophisticated error like fabricating citations that look real but are totally fake, and boom! Refunds, maybe sanctions, definitely reputational damage.
The Deloitte Australia case sounds like a perfect example. $440,000 back because of fake citations in a government report? That's high stakes.
Textbook example.
Yeah.
And it's not a rounding error, like you said. It's a real hit. And we're seeing these consequences pile up elsewhere, too, not just Deloitte.
Where else?
Well, the UK regulator is now specifically targeting the big 4 accounting firms over weak AI quality controls. They see the risk.
Oh.
In the legal sector, there are reports saying high-stakes AI errors have gone from happening maybe monthly to daily. Think about that error frequency.
Daily errors in legal work. That's alarming.
It forces regulators to react, right? That's why you see 46 U.S. states rushing through emergency guardrail laws. They're scrambling to put boundaries around systems that are being deployed faster than the safety measures can be validated.
It really highlights the coordination failure Katz talks about. The people with the loudest voices, the tech media, scoring trust at 4 or 5, have the shallowest technical understanding.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the academic researchers, the ones with the deepest expertise, scoring trust at 1 out of 5, they just don't have the same reach to influence the C-suite.
It's a knowledge paradox. Decisions follow the noise, not the consensus. I mean, think about this. Deloitte announced a massive $3 billion AI investment on the exact same day they paid back $440,000 for an AI failure.
That juxtaposition is, wow. That's the ultimate example of optimizing for the wrong signal, isn't it? Celebrating the abstract potential, the 87.7% score, while actively ignoring the concrete failures and the lack of boundaries that cause.
Finding it differently.
Oh, absolutely. It's not about being anti-progress. The consensus is clear. Models are improving incredibly rapidly. The common estimate is something like a 3x improvement in overall capability just in the last 15 months or so.
3x in 15 months is incredibly fast.
It's a blistering pace of innovation. No one denies that. The big area of trust is in human-AI collaboration. Experts see this technology as a phenomenal complementary tool, not a replacement, especially for complex work.
So AI assists the human, it doesn't replace them.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Maybe a human expert takes 10 hours to create a high-quality first draft of something complex. The AI might get them 80% of the way there in, say, 20 minutes.
Okay.
That gives the human professional back maybe 8 hours to focus on the really crucial stuff.
Yeah.
Verification, refinement, adding the nuanced context the AI inevitably misses. That's a massive efficiency gain, even if the overall process is maybe only 3x faster, not 100x. And trust is also much higher for specialized, well-defined, bounded tasks. Things where the context is clear and it's easy to verify the output. Think coding assistance, generating software test cases, maybe formatting documents, summarizing large texts accurately, or translating languages. These are generally lower stakes areas where automation works well, and the trust score. They absolutely do not trust the 100x faster claims without massive caveats. They insist the real adjusted speed cost gain is in that 1.5x to 3x range once you factor in rigorous and frankly expensive oversight. They do not trust the production-ready claim for critical high-stakes tasks, period. Because that 3% irreducible failure rate, the risk of confident hallucination is just unacceptable where failure has serious consequences.
And the timeline. People talk about AI replacing experts very soon. What do the experts say?
Not happening near term for complex roles, according to the consensus. They project full adoption, where AI truly takes over core expert functions, is more like 5 to 15 years away, not the 1 to 3 years you hear in the hype cycle.
5 to 15 years, not 1 to 3. That's a big difference in planning horizons.
Huge difference. And they also point out that even performance degrades. That impressive 48% win rate some models show in controlled lab tests, it often drops down to maybe 30% or 40% when you move it into a messy, real-world production environment where the tasks aren't perfectly defined.
And it always seems to come back to that small, concentrated danger zone, that irreducible risk.
It does. That 2% to 5% risk band, it lives exactly where context is novel, stakes are high, and verification is difficult, or maybe even skip. That's the organizational Achilles heel.
That's the spot where you absolutely cannot afford a convincing lie from the machine.
Exactly. And if you cut corners on oversight to chase that mythical 100x speed, you are effectively pushing your operations right into that danger zone. You're magnifying the risk. You can choose to optimize for the media narrative. Chase the 100x, maybe cut oversight, and you will likely, eventually, face your own Deloitte-style moment with refunds, sanctions, or worse.
Or the alternative.
Or you optimize for the expert consensus. You accept the real, but still valuable 1.5x to 3x improvement. You invest in rigorous boundaries and checks. You build resilient hybrid intelligence where AI assists humans effectively, improving output without creating massive hidden risks. What's the first one that comes to mind for you?
First, you absolutely have to ask, what do domain experts, not tech media, not vendors, but people who live and breathe your specific field, say about production readiness for your high-stakes use cases? Find the engineers, the researchers, the seasoned practitioners who understand that 3% failure risk in your context.
Crucial. Go beyond the hype. What's number 2?
Second, what's the real adjusted cost and speed once you factor in the mandated human oversight? Do the math, honestly. Remember, it's likely 1.5x to 3x faster overall, not 100x. That realistic number drastically changes your ROI calculation and ensures you actually budget for the essential verification roles. Don't get caught short.
Makes sense. Plan for the real cost of safety. And the third.
And finally, the absolute gut check. Is a potential 3% rate of critical, hard-to-detect failure acceptable in this specific use case? Be brutally honest. If the answer is no, and for many critical tasks, it should be then that system is not production ready for that task, no matter the benchmark score. You must design explicit, enforceable boundaries around its use.
Right. Those 3 questions cut through a lot of the noise.
They force you to confront the gap.
And to synthesize that core insight from Katz's work and this whole situation, media reach simply does not equal expert validation. The polarization we're seeing exists because technical depth, actual expertise, is being ignored or drowned out.
So progress is real.
Progress is spectacular, but it's progress within known critical boundaries. And respecting those boundaries is non-negotiable for safe, effective deployment. Knowledge means understanding the limits.
The lesson here feels incredibly clear. If your organization's decisions are being built primarily on breathless headlines and benchmark scores, rather than on solid engineering consensus and risk assessment, well, you're basically engineering your own future Deloitte moment. It's just a matter of time.